solidaridad or solidarity is at the cutting edge of the future of Unitarian Universalism. The foundation of mutual support, unity, and agreement of feeling or action is love, especially liberating love. At our virtual Unitarian Universalist General Assembly in June this year, we passed for the second time a major revision to our purpose section of the Unitarian Universalist Association's bylaws called Article 2. The last major revision of Article 2 was in 1985. The 7 principles and 5 sources, later amended to 6, now familiar to us, were crafted and approved at that time. They can be reviewed whenever you want by looking in the front of the gray hymnal published in 1992. They remain important expressions of our values, passed by an overwhelming margin of 82 to 18%, is a new statement and framework for those values. You'll find your souvenir edition of that document as an insert in your order of service this morning. I believe this new framework for our values has tremendous potential, tremendous transformational potential for our way of doing religion. One of the biggest challenges is centering liberatory love. Now, this is a dramatic change from how the widely acclaimed Unitarian historian Earl Morris Wilbur defined the key values that have driven us since the first Unitarians and then Universalists emerged during the Protestant Reformation 500 years ago. In his 2-volume 20th century chronicling of our history, Wilbur defines 3 common themes throughout that history: freedom, reason, and tolerance. Freedom, reason, and tolerance. The revolutionary belief promoted during the Reformation was that the source of truth was not the priest, was not church doctrine, but rather the words found in the Bible alone. It was Italian for that is solo scriptorum. Solo scriptorum is what they proclaimed. The radical interpretation of that idea was that each person should read that text and come to their own conclusion about the truth revealed in it. The freedom of the individual to reason that truth for themselves found support in the radicals of the Reformation who are our cherished ancestors. Unfortunately, a corollary to this idea is that if we are to come to our own conclusions, they may differ. Therefore, we need to tolerate differences of opinions rather than burn each other at the stake as heretics. Freedom, reason, and tolerance are the powerful formational ideas of our liberal faith. And The world has changed a lot in the last 500 years. Maybe you've noticed. Many of us have had our faith shaken in freedom, reason, and tolerance. Scientific advances in understanding textual and historical criticism of the Bible and an appreciation of other religious traditions and ways of doing religion all have undermined our faith that the Bible has the exclusive revealed word of God. Advances in physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, and ecology, just to name a few, have cast doubt about reason's ability to help us answer all important life questions. The more we know, the more questions we seem to have about where that absolute truth may lie. And that absolute truth concept seems to be fading into a cosmic black hole. And finally, we've discovered that tolerance isn't a satisfactory way to build strong community in our congregations. We really need a more cohesive approach. At the end of the 1980s and the 1990s, in a sea change of leadership and membership in our congregations, the question many of your ministers were asking each other was, what is the center of our faith now? What is it that has the width and depth to unite us as one association of congregations? The Article 2 Study Commission took on that challenge in 2020. They did surveys. They did focus groups. They consulted the bright lights of our ministry. They had workshops across the country and at General Assembly, and they looked deep into their own hearts to look for the integration of all that they were learning, hearing, thinking, and feeling. From all that they learned, they decided it was time for a bold assertion to put love at the center of Unitarian Universalism, liberatory love. Contemporary Unitarian Universalists have been influenced by Latin American liberation theologians like Gustavo Gutierrez and Bishop Oscar Romero. Unitarian Universalist leaders have moved away from white supremacist, colonialist, world-dominating identity from 100 years ago. Today, Unitarian Universalists are looking for ways to dismantle systems of oppression and harm done to those who are marginalized, and to protect and nurture the ecosystem on which we are totally dependent. Liberation's theology's concept of the preferential option for the poor has moved many of us to believe that we must center those who are oppressed and marginalized if we ever hope to build the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s vision of beloved community. Centering love also resonates with our Unitarian, resonates with our Universalist heritage here. Founding Universalists like John and Judith Sargent Murray believed that God's love was so great and infused all of existence to such an extent that God would never damn any of God's creation to hell. That potential for love was inherent in us and couldn't be removed. That resonates with the Unitarian theology of founder William Ellery Channing, who recognized a potential good in all of us that could grow through character development. Putting love at the center rather than a system of beliefs is a radical departure from Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the Abrahamic faiths that form the context for Unitarian Universalist emergence during the Reformation. Our Unitarian and Universalist ancestors regularly attempted to come up with some kind of belief statement that defined them. Nothing stuck. And rather than expel members for unorthodox belief, they usually added an exception clause that allowed people to disagree with that statement. Rather than attempt to define our beliefs yet again, your UUA General Assembly affirmed that the best way to define ourselves is by claiming shared values that we agree are sources of our behavior. The new Article 2 states a value and then a covenant. A value and then a covenant. A commitment to act upon that value. We're not focusing on what people must think to be Unitarian Universalist, but rather what we must do as Unitarian Universalists. Action is what proclaiming love as the center of Unitarian Universalism requires of us. A commitment to action in the service of love as the center of our faith promises transformation through experience rather than an intellectual process alone. Lived experience of and in the world has a great power to transform us. Donating money to a soup kitchen, valuable as that action is very different from cooking, serving, and sitting with the poor in that kitchen. Personally advocating for positive social change in Albany or in Washington, D.C. is far more powerful than clicking the donate button on a social media link. Valuable as writing a letter to your county legislator is, and that is very valuable. Talking to that legislator in their office is better. The agony and the ecstasy of raising a child, the travel maybe to the Arctic or to a rainforest to experience climate change, honest conversation and listening to those who do not share your beliefs or values are all paths to experiential religious transformation. So, what do the values that spring from liberatory love ask us to do? Here is what we've said in the new Article 2 statement. For interdependence, protect Earth and all beings from exploitation, create and sustain and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality and justice, and work to repair harm and damaged relationships. For pluralism, learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. For justice, dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression and support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, our association and society at large, just as we did last Thursday. For transformation to grow spiritually and ethically with an openness to change that is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. For generosity, to share our faith, presence, and resources that connect us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. And finally, for equity, to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. Yes, we have ideas and individual beliefs about justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity, and how they spring from liberatory love. What matters is what we do. What matters is what we do about those values to bring them to life in our congregations, in our communities, and our world. What I want to make abundantly clear this morning is we are not abandoning our 7 principles and 6 sources. They still support our faith. I hope you heard them, some of them, recast as things to do rather than just believe. In words I just read, we have not abandoned freedom, reason, and tolerance. They are embedded in the work of liberatory love. And finally, we haven't deified love either. For me, love is deeply embedded in the nature of being itself, in the drive toward novelty found in process theology, and in the biochemical structures that make up these amazing body-mind systems, and in the beautiful ecology all around us. The evolutionary forces that drive all life seem to thrive when individual parts come together to become a larger whole. That is what I see happening in Article 2. It brings together disparate parts of Unitarian Universalism and combines them to create a greater whole than we've had before. And that greater whole promises to unlock tremendous potential for us. One of those potentials is to realize a new level of solidaridad than we've ever known before. That solidarity will help us realize a new level of mutual support, unity, and agreement of feeling and action. May it be so.